I'm Jerome Hill, and welcome to the Hill of Justice. Today on Hill of Justice, I'm excited to introduce our special guest, a visionary in the world of filmmaking and storytelling, director, writer, producer, Juming Delmas. His work has been recognized in various screenwriting competitions and has made it to the later stages of prestigious contests such as Screencraft. Over the years, Juming has committed to telling stories that resonate with a broad audience while lacking all types of deep, complex human experiences. His versatility expands across genres. He continues to make waves in the industry as a creative force to watch. His dedication to addressing social justice, human rights, and environmental issues through his art has garnered him critical acclaim and a loyal following of fans on this podcast. I'm just here to listen, who appreciate both his artistic talent and his bold voice. But beyond the screen, he recently faced a defining personal experience that brought him into the public spotlight in a very different way. Today, Juming Delmas joins us to share his story, how it shaped him, and discuss how this experience has influenced his life and work with social justice. Welcome, Juming. Thank you and for joining the show.
Hey, Jerome, how you doing, man?
All right. I'm gonna get right into it, and
For sure.
I just want to go ahead and talk about this surreal chapter in your life. Can you share with us, in your own words, exactly what happened earlier this year in Turner County, Georgia?
So yeah, man. Crazy. I've been arrested once in my life, and that was about a couple of months ago. Um, I'm a big influencer in my community, a leader, a speaker. I host a book club, a morning book club with a group of entrepreneurs. So this was definitely out of the norm for me. Making movies and films and videos and a successful entrepreneur here locally. Um, I was actually headed for a business trip in Atlanta, and I done messed around and took the back roads to Georgia. You know, so um, I was driving, and I keep I drive usually on autopilot. So my speed pretty much stays consistent. Yeah, this is designed so I don't get any tickets or anything. So I remember I was like going in, and I know that the limit at the time was like 65, and that 65 dropped easily to I think it was 50. And I was doing like 60. And typically when it's like 65, if the speed limit is 65, I'm probably going to do like a little, like 5 miles, 5 to 7 miles over the speed limit. So I'm doing about 72 in the 65, 73. And then the speedometer, the speed meter, drops down to the 55. And anyways, long story short, I get pulled because of a ticket, a speeding ticket. When I get pulled, he said, "Yeah, we'll be back. It'll be cool." Blah 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 blah. Next thing I know, the cop comes up to the door. He says, "Could you step out of the vehicle?" And anytime a cop says, "Let's step out of the vehicle," it typically is never good. So I step out the car. I was like, "What's going on?" He said, "Can you put your hands behind your back?" I said, "What am I putting my hands behind my back for?" He goes, "Because you're under arrest." I said, "For what?" It's like you're driving on a suspended license. So, not gonna lie, man, that was like a surreal moment because I was on the phone with my girlfriend, and she hears all of this and is like, "What's going on?" So I'm like, "I'm going to jail for a suspended license." I said, "How's my license suspended?" So he spits this code to me that I have no idea what the code is. So my girlfriend's on the line. She hears the code. She said that code means you have an insurance lapse. I said, "I don't have an insurance lapse. Like, I pay my insurance every month. I know that wasn't the case." Anyways, long story short, it did show that my license was suspended, but it showed that because of the insurance issue. One, I didn't know. So apparently, the insurance company sent. So we called up the insurance company. They sent something in the mail that stated that they were dropping the insurance on my vehicle, on my BMW. Not sure why they dropped it, but apparently the in the event that the BMW get into a wreck or something, it was too high of a claim for something for them to be able to cover it, which was BS. Nobody really checks their mail
Mm-hmm.
when it comes from their insurance company, because usually when I'm getting mail from my insurance company, it's usually just to let me know that the bill was paid.
Mm-hmm.
So I assumed that that's probably what the case was, and so that's probably why I never checked the mail. But anyways, they did drop the insurance. And what's crazy is I have 4 other vehicles, and all of those vehicles have insurance. So they kept those on insurance, except that one. Why would my license be suspended for one vehicle that's not insured when all of my other vehicles are insured? But
Mm-hmm.
anyways, that's beyond the case. Anyways, I ended up going to jail. So for that, unbeknownst to myself, not even knowing that my insurance was dropped because the premium on it would have been the claim on my BMW would have been too high for them to want to afford. So I ended up going to jail that day.
Okay.
I was very cooperative with the officer for the
Mm-hmm.
most part, because I ain't trying to get shot. So I'm in Georgia. I'm out somewhere I'm not even familiar with. So yeah, ended up going to jail for that. Yeah,
Okay.
not a fun moment.
There's several questions I definitely wanted to ask you about. I know that road was a little bit unfamiliar to you, um, but right off the top of the head, uh, was there any construction in the area?
No, there was no construction in the area at the
Okay.
time. That not that I recall.
Okay. And the reason why I asked that, and for anybody who's watching this, and please leave a comment down below, particularly my law enforcement friends. When I take a look at the Georgia Vehicle Code and so on and so forth, I generally they don't have 50 miles per hour as a speed limit.
Mm.
It's certainly other. I believe there's a 35, 45, 55, 70. But
It
50 is
might
a
have
little
been
bit
55. It
okay.
might have been 50, but I think he clocked on the ticket. I'm not sure. I think on the ticket it said 50 and the 72.
Yeah, that's where I wanted to talk to you about because once I asked for the show for those who, in the audience that want to know. I asked Juming to go ahead and send me the ticket, and I found it odd that it did say that. And just to give you some context of what goes on,
Mm.
any one of those type of particular inconsistencies for people in the audience, you can contest that in court. Um, that is one of the striking and mitigating factors that you can have taken out. And so when I did my research on that, I found that very odd. One.
Wait, back up. You saying that there is no 50 miles an hour in the state of Georgia? There's only a 50, a 55, or a 55, like it goes by multiples of five, kind of?
Yeah, there's two entities that could change that to 50. Um, and I tell you who can't change that. Construction crews. Oftentimes they'll say, hey, guess what? Stay at a particular speeding limit. Well, that has to get approval from the Georgia Department of Transportation and also has to get and or uh, I believe it's city and county
Mm.
have some type of petitioning system that they can go ahead and ask for um, speed limits on that end of it. From what I understand from the ticket, you were on, I believe, on 75 heading northbound.
Correct. Yeah. Headed to
Okay.
Atlanta.
Yeah. It's just odd. I mean, I'm not saying that it's beyond the possibility, and that's why I've asked other law enforcement officers to comment down below if they know of any stretch of I-75 to be 50 mile per hour. I don't know of any,
Well,
and
and it's funny you say that because I said that to, um, who was I talking to? I said that to my attorney. I was talking to an attorney, and I said, like, when I got the ticket, it showed, and I didn't get the ticket till I was out of jail. I got the ticket, and it showed that I was doing 50. And I knew then, I was like, I knew I was in the 55. And so that was an argument that I had with the attorney. I said, I think he just added an additional 5 miles to what I was on. I said, I know that I was definitely doing 72, hands down, because it was generally at a 65. So it was 65. It didn't even drop to like 60. It went from like 65 to 55. And at that moment, I knew that I was doing 72. So of course you're going to slow down. But the guy was literally like waiting, like almost like several feet from that 55. It was like the perfect setup, like for you to miss them, because you have to, because it was like you were going slightly up over a hill, so you couldn't see the cop car sitting under the hill. So it was like the moment you go over it, there's like this 55. And I even told the when I told the Bells bond lady, I said he has me doing a 50 and the 72. I said I for sure know I was in the 50. I know I was at least in the 55. And I did have that argument,
Mhm.
but that's what he clocked me at.
Do you remember the police department or the sheriff's office that pulled you over?
I just know I was in Turner County.
Okay, so it was Turner County Sheriff's Office that did that.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
I made a call into Turner County Sheriff's Office to ask for some clarification about the matter. They have not returned my phone call as of
Man,
recording of this.
I promise you that place was really shady. I mean, I think everything about that process was shady. I mean, I've never been to jail a day in my life.
Mhm.
One, I go to jail for something unbeknownst to myself. Like one, it's like one, like granted, the cop is doing his job. He just sees my license is suspended.
Mhm.
Fair. Did he have to add the 5 extra miles? No, I don't think that was necessary. Two, the insurance company, like how do you drop somebody's insurance and like not call or email or say anything? So to be fair, they dropped my insurance back in April of this year.
Mhm.
I got this ticket, was it August, September?
August.
August. I've been driving on a suspended license for about 4 months, not knowing my license was suspended. And of all places to get pulled, I get pulled in Georgia,
Mhm.
in Turner County. And everything about that was shady. The experience in that jail cell was extremely shady. Here's the deal. So what happens was I still had my insurance card that showed that the BMW was still covered.
Mhm.
So I was able to, there's a website in Florida that you're able to like type in your driver's license and it'll let you know if it's suspended or not. And you could probably drop that in your link for people to be able to check that out. But my license showed that it was suspended, but it showed that it was suspended due to the insurance. So what? And so it says, if you want, you can upload your insurance here, and it would clear the whatever. So I uploaded my card insurance for my BMW to show that it was still intact at the time of the suspension.
Mhm.
And at that moment, it cleared it immediately because it
Mhm.
reflected the numbers and the date that it was suspended. I think it was like it was suspended on like April 22nd, but my insurance was still good till April 27th. But my coverages never lapsed. Anyway, so I even showed this to the sheriff. I said, "Look, we were able. This there had to be a mistake. This was a mistake here on the Florida count or the Florida GOV website for driving shows that my license is now cleared. I shouldn't have to go to jail. This was clearly a mistake." And he goes back and he said, "Well, that has nothing to do with me. On my system, it still shows that it's suspended. So I'm going to take you to jail." Didn't even attempt to um, didn't even attempt to try and fix the situation. Just didn't care. Um, Even though in the Florida system it shows I was active. And so I'm in this jail cell with this holding cell with 5 other guys. Whatever. Some of them are literally in there for other things outside of the driving suspension. Why would you put me, a guy who's driving on the road? Why would you put me in a jail cell for a traffic stop? You're gonna put me in a jail cell with criminals. Not only put me in a jail cell with criminals, but I don't know them, but then the guy in the front desk just completely walks off and like just leaves me. Like anything could have happened. You know what I mean? It was just like I don't. It was just a really shady. There was a lot of shadiness going on. It was a filthy jail cell. Like it wasn't even like in my mind when I think jail, I see bars. And because if you ain't never been in jail, you don't know. You expect bars,
Sure.
but it
Sure.
wasn't bars. It was a big glass window, like a bulletproof window with a steel door.
Mhm.
And You go in, you close that steel door, and you're in the cell with all these guys. There's brick walls. There's a toilet in there and a sink. So it smells like toilet water and a
Mhm.
bunch of musty men just in this cell. You feel disgusting, and everybody's in there for different reasons. It was just a very shady experience, man.
What generally it happens, particularly, of course, the more concerning part of it was that you were able to show to the sheriff that uh, you're in full compliance in Florida. That's where
Right,
you live,
right,
and that the disconnect between the systems in Georgia and Florida, there did there was a discrepancy. The
right,
problem with that is when we have those type of discrepancies, there should be a little bit of further investigation.
right,
And what you're not trying to do as a law enforcement officer is, that putting cuffs on individuals, that could be potentially a life altering moment. In addition to that, taking someone's freedom away unnecessarily, particularly in this case, could be completely avoided
right.
had there been just a little bit more patience involved. Um, that was some of the clarity that I wanted to ask that department about that, given um, what clearly was a discrepancy. And what I'm just learning for the very first time is that you had other vehicles that were compliant,
Yeah,
and thus it wouldn't have been a hard stretch to go ahead and say, well, guess what? If you had three vehicles compliant, why would you not do the fourth? I'm not saying there aren't instances like that, but however, it would be just a stretch. It would be part of the elements of trying to put the case together. Naturally, uh, giving you the ticket for the speeding, whether it was over 55 or whether the speed limit was 50 or 55, you were going to get that anyhow.
right. And I would have
But
took that.
sure, sure, sure. And and thus, just to give you some idea, generally in Georgia, I will go ahead and let you know that at least for the state troopers, um, uh, they can arrest anyone. I want the audience to know this. They can arrest anyone who goes even a mile over the speed limit. Um, that is, they absolutely have the right to do that. Um, by extension and courtesy, they do not. They'll really, when you get to the 10-mile mark and further, that's pretty much how they'll go ahead and handle those affairs. That seems to be nationwide. However, I do know that at least when I was taking a look at Georgia law, they can do that. I just wanted to give the audience that type of perspective.
I think that's BS. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
regardless, it there should be some type of grace period when it comes to those speeding laws and speeding tickets, because to say that, so I have a question then.
Mhm.
So if they can give you a ticket for going a mile over the speed limit, if they want to, granted they don't do it, but they can do it.
Mhm.
If they give you a speeding ticket for going 1 mile over the speed limit,
Mhm.
can they give you a speeding ticket for going 1 mile under the speed limit?
That I do not know. I do not want to go ahead and profess that. Generally, my experience is that when I have to deal with individuals, always over. If it's under, there's some mitigating circumstances there.
I'm curious to know that because, like, is there, so I do know that you can get a ticket for driving too slowly in a certain lane, right?
Sure. Mhm.
Right. So there you can get a ticket for driving too slowly. Is there an average number that you cannot undergo when you're under a specific speed limit? Is there, like, if you're doing a 50, can you not go 10 miles below? I mean, what is the average number for that? Because I'm curious on that.
Well, like I said, it's just my experience. I haven't dealt with that too many times. And when
Right.
I did deal with it, it was some mitigating circumstances where um, yes, the car had to be impounded because there was a issue with the equipment on the vehicle.
Right.
Um, uh, I know of other law enforcement friends of mine who have had a medical emergency issue that happened. But for me, it was my experience has been just a vehicle equipment issue. But it's not beyond the reality of what could happen. I just don't know particularly how we go about it. Now, speeding, of course, speed kills, right? So that would be something that we would look at more aggressively or have more inquiry about.
Right, which the speeding was fair. Like
Mhm.
that I took with that, and to be fair, like again, I wasn't that far from the 65 line.
Mhm.
Like I had put down my coordinates because on out these iPhones you can put down the exact coordinates where you're located. So when he pulled me, I had my coordinates.
Mhm.
So you can see exactly how far from the 65-mile line we were to the 55, which makes sense when you said earlier about they not having like a 50 because it went from the 55, the 65 to the 55.
Mhm.
And I made a big deal about the 5 miles over because I'm thinking, if I'm 5 miles over, then it doesn't require me to go to driver's school or whatever the case is. Like
Mhm.
he took those 5 miles, it would have been great. I just felt like the process. They came in. The guy, he disappeared. I'm in the cell with all these guys. Man, something hurt my heart. Man, one of the guys in there, he was a Georgia resident. He was there also for suspended license, and he had his girlfriend with him. And he was telling me a story about how they were driving. It was like 2 o'clock in the morning. Two
Mhm.
o'clock in the morning. It was pitch dark outside, and he gets pulled. The cop pulls him over. He's in the car with his girlfriend. His girlfriend's pregnant. He says she's about 7 months in. He has his 1-year-old with him. Cop arrests him, right, for the suspended license. His
Mhm.
girlfriend can't drive the car because she don't have a vehicle.
Mhm.
Cop arrests him, takes the girlfriend and the baby, drops them off at some gas station in the middle of the night, pitch dark. His 1-year-old and his pregnant girlfriend just dropped her off at a gas station. She has no way of contacting him. She has no phone. His phone was confiscated. So he's been sitting in the jail cell for 3.5, 4 days. Um, can't bond out because, like in jail, like it's different. You don't realize, like, you don't know people's numbers by heart.
No.
So, if you don't have, if she doesn't have a phone, you don't have your phone. You have your phone, but it's locked away, and like you don't know these things. So he had no way of getting hold of her to know if she was okay. So I think that would have like racked my mind, right? Like my girl's out with, on the back roads of Georgia,
Right.
and it's 2 o'clock in the morning. She's pregnant with my child.
Mhm.
It's like that's mind boggling. So it took him days before. Luckily, the girl is fine, but it took days before she got a hold of him,
Right.
to get to the location. And I just think just hearing those stories is just kind of like really, really shady. Even how they did me is just like, why, there has to be there has to be something in place that protects people from some of the shady shit that officers do out there.
Yeah.
And that's, I'm hoping maybe that's something
Well, one of the things I just thought of, as we're talking about this, that he was probably better served, especially given the discrepancies he had. He had some things to the affirmative that, you do have coverage on other vehicles. That's
Right.
one. We do know that with some systems that there's, some type of discrepancy from one to another. But, it wouldn't have hurt him at all to go ahead and give you the ticket.
Right.
Actually, give you two tickets. Let's go ahead and give you the speeding ticket, because that was the pretext to the stop
Right.
was the
Right.
speeding. Then let's go ahead and give you a ticket for, the suspended license and tow your vehicle.
Well, they towed my vehicle.
Right,
That's the thing. They
right,
towed
right.
my vehicle.
Well, the reason is we can't let you if we do have some idea that you have a suspended license. drive with that vehicle and you hit and kill somebody,
Well,
then
here's
who's in trouble?
right on the suspended license, right?
Right.
But again, so the problem that I have with that is I'm driving on a suspended license, unbeknownst to myself. Didn't know I was on a suspended license, and I think that's what happened with most people. Again, I didn't even know that the insurance that was a problem, like with insurance companies.
Mhm.
One, I'm driving a current vehicle. The current vehicle that I was driving was insured, so
Mhm.
I know that I got pulled because my license was suspended. So the vehicle that I was driving was insured because it was my girlfriend's car.
Mhm.
And so um the fact that my license got suspended unbeknownst to myself,
Mhm.
I had like I man, going through the court system
Mhm.
in what was the county? What was
Turner County was the
Warwick
one.
count or
Which one?
Warwick Court or whatever the case is.
Okay, yeah,
Like
Warwick is the name of the municipality that you're
Correct.
dealing with.
Like the whole system,
Mhm.
that whole system is screwed. Like what I found out throughout the process is they prey on people's downfall out there. Like no lie. Like I feel like from like that's how they make their money, right?
Mhm.
You catch these guys going from out of town that's taking these back roads to Atlanta. And God forbid you get pulled for a speeding, then they catch you with other things or whatever the case is. And just by the grace of God, I'm able to afford to be able to bond out. But like there's guys in there, right, who can't afford to bond out. Like so they're in there for days waiting for a court date. Like you wake up one day, you're on your way somewhere, you're trying to get your day started, and next thing you know, you're in jail for 4 days. This was not expected. This was not planned, anything. And these guys go through, and then these courts, the system, it milks these people knowing that they cannot get out. And then what I also found out is like in jail systems, and you could correct me if I'm wrong on this, but when they're incarcerating somebody in the jail system, they get paid per inmate to be there after a certain amount of hours, if it's considered a day or so. Is that correct?
Well, it depends on the type of systems that some counties are using.
Right,
So it's more generated towards the prison system than the jail system
right,
itself.
right.
You're not entirely wrong. You're in the right vein, but it's more of the prison system.
Okay. And so I was in jail for 5 hours, man. 5 hours of my life didn't have a phone, anything. It was the worst experience of my life. And luckily, I got things squared away where, they're not going to hit me with a suspended license. They're not going to hit me with a speeding ticket. They hit me with, I got the speeding ticket, but it was to a point where it wasn't going to affect my license. And then for the insurance, they just changed it to driving without a license. So that did occur, but I had to get an attorney for that, right? Because
Right.
one, it was the first time I've been to jail. It's the first time I've been stopped for something like that. So it was like there was that mercy behind it, but still, I still came out of thousands of dollars between the bail's bond, between um, getting my vehicle from being impounded, between paying for an attorney and then paying for the court fees. I still came out of thousands of dollars. So that makes me think about all those guys who got caught up in this system off of something that probably they didn't know about, that they can't afford to spend thousands of dollars to get out of this situation. So they're forced to be in these jail cells um, off of something that they probably wasn't even aware of, like an insurance default that just decide I'm going to drop your car insurance because your car is too expensive. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's a real shady system, man. It's a real shady system.
Well, I will tell you this: it is, and I want everybody to hear this, and I know you probably heard it before. It is expensive being
Yeah.
broke. I want people to hear that. It is expensive being broke. So let's just talk about the racket. Let's go back to some of the less unfortunate individuals who don't have the particular resources. So you find yourself in your situation. You're in jail. You don't have the resources to particularly bond yourself out. Well, talk to me if you're going to have the resources to go ahead and get your car out also, because that's a problem too. Because
Right.
as every day goes on, there's going to be additional fees that are going to be locked onto that. So
Correct.
those fees go up and up and up. So the racket definitely is okay. Well, it gets to the point where for some individuals, it probably costs more to get the car out than the car itself.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So guess who gets the reap the rewards, the city or the county that or the tow truck company that set these exorbitant fees. That's always been a problem, and that's probably for another episode, quite
Right.
truthfully, because that is that happens all over, particularly in very large cities, populated cities. We see that down here in Miami all the time, and there's legislation that has been introduced, and it even comes down to even having reality TV shows like South Beach Tow,
Right.
that became popular down here. So there is. Let's go ahead and say this: what you're explaining, there's more to that, but you're not wrong. You're going down the rabbit hole of generally some things that do happen.
Right.
Right. So just to close out this episode, and I know that it's a harrowing experience.
Yeah.
So is there anything that you may have done a little bit different, or will do it a little bit different moving forward?
Yeah. What I would probably do moving forward in that situation, one, not speed, one, not take the back road to Georgia anymore. I'd rather take the longer route at this point. Now that I know you can get pulled over for just being 1 mile over, I don't want any reason to be pulled. To be fair, outside of the speeding, there's nothing else I could have done differently.
Sure.
Like, once you get caught in that system, you're caught in that system.
Right.
And there is that's it. There's no coming out of it unless you got the money to come out.
Okay. Well, Juming, I wanted to say thank you. Thank you for jumping on. And please don't be a stranger to the show. Come back on. There's many more things I'd like to talk to you about, and for this type of time that we have. So that's it for today's episode of The Hill of Justice. I'd like to thank once again my guest, award-winning filmmaker Juming Delmas. You can follow Juming and stay updated on his work by looking for him on several platforms like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, X, and follow his podcasts, especially I'm Just Here to Listen. Go on YouTube and you'll see that some of the great work he's doing. I'm Jerome Hill. Thank you for following and subscribing. Until next time.